carry a power that God installed in you before the world had anything to say about who you should be. And the strangest thing isn't that this power exists. It's that you spent entire years living alongside it without knowing its name, without knowing it was yours. Everyone talks about Taurus in a certain way: stubborn, loyal, resilient, patient. And those words aren't lies, but they describe the surface. They describe what appears on the outside when someone looks at you from afar. What nobody describes, what almost nobody can name, is what's operating inside, beneath all that. There is an intelligence within you that is not discipline, not willpower, not even the faith you have developed over time. It is something that came before all of that. An ability to feel the weight of things before they materialize, to know in your body what is real and what is illusion, to perceive before any reasoning when something is aligned with what you were made to be. This is the secret power of Taurus, and it's not out of reach. It's exactly where it's always been, inside you, waiting for the moment you stop building protection around it and start using it for what it was given to be used for. What this video will show you isn't a technique, it's recognition, something that when you hear it won't seem new. It will seem like you already knew it, but you never had the words to name it. Think about it for a second. Since childhood, what have you learned about being strong? You learned not to show too much. You learned to build, to plan, to secure before trusting. You learned that feeling too much is dangerous, that dependence is weakness, that the best way to be safe is to have control. And you got very good at it. But the gift that God installed in you, before any learning, before any trauma, before the world taught you what you should or shouldn't feel, that gift isn't about control. That gift is about perception. It's about a capacity that Taurus has, almost without realizing it, to feel the weight of things before they materialize. To know in the body what is real and what is illusion. To recognize before any rational argument when something is aligned with what you were made to be. This isn't mysticism. It's not an exaggeration. It's an intelligence you've carried for years without knowing its name. And the problem isn't that it doesn't exist. The problem is that you've spent so much time building protection around it that it's become buried under layers and layers of security that you yourself created. There's a pattern that almost every Taurus repeats. It's not a character flaw, it's an intelligent response to a world that didn't know how to accept you for who you are. When Taurus was still young, he realized that feeling too much caused problems, that his heightened sensitivity created conflict and vulnerability. He did what any intelligent being does when faced with something that hurts without warning. He learned to guard, he learned to build, not walls of rejection, but walls of containment, internal structures to protect what was most precious and fragile within him. And the frightening thing is that it worked. Taurus became safe, he became stable, he became reliable. But the secret power remained locked inside, along with everything he was trying to protect. And that's where the paradox that this entire video will unfold begins. Because the most heavily guarded safe in the world is useless if the key is also inside the safe. And that's what happened. The protection that Taurus built around his deepest gift was so good, so well constructed, that he himself lost access, not to the gift itself, to the path back to it. And there's a question that lingers in the air when you understand this. If this power has always been within you, if this gift was given before anything the world did to you, why have you never been able to truly use it? What stands between you and what God has placed within you? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path, that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. It's not a book about astrology in the way you're used to. It's a map of how what God installed in Taurus before the world could speak can be recognized, named, and finally used. not as a technique, but as a rediscovery of who you are when you stop trying to build externally what already exists internally. You are in this moment right now, this instant when something has touched a place you don't usually let be touched. This discomfort you're feeling isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you're close to something true, and it's precisely in this state, still processing, still recognizing, with the discomfort still active, that this book makes the most sense. Not in a little while. Now. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy, and in the comments tell me, what is a gift you've always had but learned to hide because the world around you didn't know how to appreciate it? There is a difference that seems small, but changes absolutely everything. The difference between resisting and accepting. Taurus has learned to resist very well. To resist change, to resist instability, to resist what doesn't seem safe enough, to resist what hasn't yet stood the test of time and experience. And this resistance has become its identity. It has become its reputation. People say, wow, you're strong, and Taurus feels proud, but inside there's an exhaustion that doesn't have an easy name. The exhaustion of someone who uses all their energy, keeping something afloat that perhaps wouldn't need so much effort to exist if the direction were different. Because the secret power of Taurus doesn't operate through effort. It operates through alignment, and alignment isn't force, it's openness. It's the ability to receive what has already been destined without first needing to prove oneself worthy of it. Imagine a door. You've spent years pushing it, with force, with determination, with the stubbornness that everyone admires in you. But the door opens inward, and nobody told you that. So you kept pushing, you got stronger, you got more resolute, and the door remained closed. Not because you weren't capable, because the direction was wrong from the beginning. And the more force you put in, the more firmly the door stayed in place. What did Taurus miss out on while busy resisting? This question hurts more than it seems at first glance, because the answer isn't as simple as a missed opportunity, a relationship that didn't work out, or a chance that slipped away. It's something deeper than that. It's life itself that was available to you while your hands were busy holding on to what you thought you needed to control to keep everything from falling apart. And the most paradoxical thing of all is that the gift that should make this easier, this profound perception, this almost physical sensitivity to what is real, has been used for years in a way that contradicts its intended purpose. Instead of helping Taurus recognize what is aligned, it has been recruited to monitor threats, to detect danger before it arrives, to justify why it's not safe to let go, why it's not safe to trust, why it's not safe to receive what is being offered. The most sophisticated precision instrument in existence, operating as an alarm system. A silent tragedy unfolds within Taurus without anyone noticing from the outside, because from the outside everything seems solid, seems constructed, seems in place. If you stop for a second now and honestly look at your life, you'll be able to recognize where this happens, not in theory, in concrete practice. In what part of your existence are you pushing a door that opens inward? In what relationship? In what project? In what part of yourself are you using force where you need to use openness? The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Now, what God installed in Taurus isn't something you develop over time. It's something you rediscover when you stop looking in the wrong place. There's a passage in Genesis that always strikes me when I think about Taurus. It speaks of something that existed before any form, before any structure, before anything that could be named or touched. The earth was formless and empty. And it was upon this absence of form, upon this open and undefined space, that everything began to exist. Not despite the emptiness, but from it. The emptiness was not the problem. The emptiness was the condition. Taurus is the earth sign, not by coincidence, not for decorative symbolism. Earth in astrology is not just the element of the physical, the concrete, that which can be touched and measured. Earth is what contains, what sustains, what transforms what it receives into something capable of growing and nourishing. And there is an intelligence in the soil that science is still learning to understand. This capacity to recognize what nourishes and what destroys, to filter, to transform, to create life from what seems to be just common matter. This is the intelligence that God installed in you, not the ability to build protective walls, the ability to contain, to receive and transform, to be fertile ground for what was destined to grow through you and not just around you. But compacted soil doesn't receive anything. Soil that has been trampled for years, compressed by the accumulated weight of everything it has carried without asking, hardened by the constant need to protect itself from a vulnerability that seemed too great. This soil doesn't allow anything to grow, not because it has lost its capacity, because it needs to be plowed before it can receive anything. And plowing is different from destroying, and this is very important for Taurus to understand. Plowing is opening what has been closed. It is creating space where there was compression. It is a process that may seem violent on the surface, but is, in fact, the necessary condition for life to move again in what has always been alive. How many years have you spent compacting? How many experiences? How many disappointments? How many times you felt too much and then learned that feeling too much was too dangerous, have been piled one on top of the other, layer upon layer, until the richest soil that exists became too hard to receive what was specifically intended for it. It's not judgment, it's recognition. And recognition is the first step in tilling the soil, the first gesture of restoring to the soil the porosity it always had, which life has been closing off without warning. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Now comes a moment when Taurus himself needs to stop and ask a question that most have never truly asked. What have I always called a flaw in myself that is, in fact, exactly the gift that God placed here? Because the world has labeled too much, and Taurus, who takes words seriously, who feels the weight of everything said about him, has been holding on to these labels as if they were a definition, as if they were the final diagnosis of who he is. Taurus's slowness was called laziness, lack of ambition, and procrastination. Its depth was called emotional exaggeration, unnecessary intensity, and difficulty letting go. Its need for security before acting was called fear, paralysis, and lack of courage. And its intense attachment to what is real was called possessiveness, jealousy, and an inability to let go. But look closely at what each of these labels is hiding. Slowness isn't laziness, it's discernment in motion. It's the ability to not act before understanding, to not build on a foundation that isn't yet firm enough. It's an intelligence that the fast-paced world wants you to abandon because it makes you harder to manipulate, harder to push towards decisions that aren't yours. The depth isn't an exaggeration. It's fidelity to what is real. While the world comfortably surfed on the surface of things, you were already feeling the currents that move everything below. You don't exaggerate. You perceive more than most can process. The need for security before acting is not fear. It's ancient wisdom. It's the profound refusal to build on sand when you know, in a way that needs no rational explanation, that the foundation matters more than speed. And clinging to what is real is not possessiveness. It's the ability to take root, to create bonds that don't break at the first sign of trouble, to be the kind of presence that's still there when everything superficial has gone. You spent years apologizing for who you are, trying to be faster, lighter, more detached, easier to be around, and with each honest attempt to fit the mold the world demanded, you drifted a little further from yourself. a little further from the power that was patiently waiting for you right inside. A diamond doesn't need to apologize for not being sand. It just needs to stop comparing itself to what it isn't and start reflecting what it is. And when it finally does that, when it stops hiding what shines because the shine bothered those accustomed to the darkness, it changes everything around it simply by being what it always was. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. So how does Taurus activate what's already inside them? It's not a 5-step ritual. It's not a resolution you make and forget in 3 days. It's not a technique that works for everyone. That's a different question. The age-old question Taurus has spent years asking is, what do I need to do to finally get what I want? The more I build, the more I resist, the more I endure. When will what is mine arrive? The new question, the one that changes everything, is different. What do I need to stop doing so that what is mine has space to reach me? Because the secret power of Taurus isn't built through effort. It's revealed through clarity, and it reveals itself when you stop using energy to protect, to resist, to control, and start using that same energy to perceive, to trust, to become quiet enough so that the intelligence that God installed in you before anything else finally has space to speak. There is a river that flows in the right direction. It always has. Before you knew it existed, before you understood where it was going, before any map you tried to draw to make sense of its path. But you spent years trying to row against the current because you learned that strength was control, that power was dominion, that security lay in the ability to move the waters the way you wanted. And you grew exhausted. And the river was always going where you needed it to go. Stopping the struggle against the current isn't about giving up on anything. It's the genuine courage to trust that the direction has already been set before you even understand the map. It's the willingness to let go of control over the form and trust the intelligence of the flow. And that, for Taurus, who has learned that letting go is losing, is the bravest act there is. And when Taurus does this, when it stops fighting against its own nature and begins to truly trust it, the power that was dormant begins to move. Not suddenly, not with fanfare, not in a way that you need to announce to someone. In the way that Taurus recognizes as true, slowly, with a growing solidity, with a certainty that doesn't need to be proven because it simply exists. There is a life that has been waiting for you on the other side of this understanding. Not a perfect life, not a weightless existence, without difficult choices, without earth-shattering moments. A life in alignment, a life where what you build is connected to who you truly are. Not to who you learned you needed to be loved, to be accepted, to be enough. A life where slowness is an asset, not an obstacle. Where depth is light, not a burden. Where rootedness is the most powerful thing in a world that no longer knows where to plant its feet. You've lived long enough trying to be what the world demanded. You've spent enough time thinking that the power you lacked was outside yourself, in some undiscovered method, in some unachieved accomplishment, in some improved version of yourself that was always in the next effort. But God doesn't give gifts in installments. He doesn't give power conditioned on accumulated merit. What was installed in you was given whole from the beginning, before anything the world did or failed to do for you. And it's still there, not diminished, not lost, not out of reach. Waiting not for you to deserve it, waiting for you to stop doubting that it exists. This is the truth about Taurus that no one speaks clearly enough about, not because it's hidden or reserved for a select few, because it demands that you release a version of yourself that you've spent years building to reach this point. It demands that you look at the stubbornness, the slowness, the depth, the sensitivity that you spent years burying because the world didn't know what to do with it, and acknowledge that it was all power all along, that the armor and the gift were in the same place, that what you had learned to hide was what deserved the most light. You don't need to be fixed. You weren't broken. You needed to be recognized, first by yourself, for who you are, when you're not defending yourself, when you're not justifying yourself, when you're not trying to fit into anything that wasn't made for you. And when Taurus finally recognizes itself as such, not by the version that the world approved or that the world understood, but by the version that God intentionally created before anything else, the secret power ceases to be secret. It simply becomes what it should always have been, not an achievement, who you are.